What world? My name is Timothy DeJesus.
Hi everyone, Aldric here.
Hello folks, it's Kevin Kwok here.
Hi, this is Jeremey Sea. I just wanted to say this about bottoms-up perspectives. It's about real lives, real journeys, and real perspectives.
The whole idea behind bottoms-up perspective was from the word kampai, or in Asian culture, oftentimes we drink until the bottom of our cup is empty and we turn it over. So it's very much like just cheers, right? And building relationship. And that's what we're all about, is building authentic, solid relationships on a global level and being able to see things from a global perspective.
And no, we're not Alcoholics Anonymous.
We are here to be the voice of everyone.
I love the idea that we're real people and we get to share our experiences with real people just like you.
So we look forward to having you join us. What's going on, LinkedIn? Super excited to do episode 22, I believe. And I have June and Mavis as our guests today. Is it 21?
21.
21.
Don't age us.
So-
Don't age us.
I'm aging you guys. I'm a little ahead. So I'm too excited about the next episode. So, hey, thanks for everyone hopping on. And today we go talk a little about employee engagement, right? So why don't we start? Let me see here. June, why don't you kind of share with us kind of, your background and what you do and with our audience?
Well, first off, thank you everyone for having me. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Perfect.
Perfect. In honor of your 21 episode, do you want to check my ID really quick?
Ooh.
Just kidding. But my name is June. I have spent the last 5 years recruiting for tech companies such as tech giants as Google, to unicorn startups as Wish, as well as starting off my background in agency recruiting. So I've recruited for so many roles, helped hire over 250 people across all of these organizations. And now, given this pandemic that we're in and the situation with COVID, I have now transitioned into a business owner and a full-time stay-at-home mom, as well as a full-time teacher and entrepreneur. So yeah. And I'm doing a career coaching, and as far as helping job seekers kind of navigate through this time right now.
Yep, it's definitely a need right now in the industry. So thank you. What about you, Mavis? Share with you, so Mavis is the founder of Try Consulting, and also she has a very cool software platform. So why don't you share with our audience?
Yes, definitely. Thanks everyone, Kevin, Aldric, Timothy, and Jeremy, for having me here. Yeah, and I've created Happy Me Career because I've been a career coach for the last 8 years, and I've been working with young working professionals in their work, unlocking their challenges and helping them to overcome some work problems. And what I discovered is really many a times they don't find happiness at work. They get lost, and ultimately they find no meaning and no purpose at work. So Happy Me Career, as the words it says, happy me. So you got to find your happiness in me before you can find a happiness at work. And so the entire thing is that through coaching, we allow various perspectives and all to come up and really find and unlock the real root of the problem. So what I did was I create initiatives, and therefore I created an employee engagement platform like Happy Me Career to really engage. And the intention is to engage yourself in the platform, because platform software is just a system. If no one's engaging it and you don't take the initiative to engage yourself, it's just going to be a one-way direction. So that's a lot about Happy Me Career, because they are our internal customers. And it's really about engaging internal customers, So yeah, so that's a little bit gist of Happy Me Career. And yeah, and it combines a lot of like rewards, recognitions. It's really engaging the purpose and really get motivated during the time at work. No matter how much the work culture is, as long as you have a platform to get yourself developed in your career, yeah, that's the gist of it.
That is awesome.
Awesome.
So, and it's exactly what we gonna talk about today, right? How do we get employees to engage, right? And I think it's a challenge for a lot of employers out there, especially right now, right? During the pandemic, a lot of us are working remotely. We're dispersed, and a lot of us, there's people that are unemployed as well, So let's talk about that a little bit. So I want to start with the first question. Why is employee engagement so important?
Maybe I'll go first since I'm
go
still
ahead.
an employee. Profile-wise, I think I'm still an employee person. So why is it important? I think that's the basis of why we work, right? Let me start from the beginning, right? Just imagine yourself right from the start, fresh out of school, graduating. Whenever you start a new job, right? You want to start and give your best, isn't that correct? Everyone starts a job wanting to do your best and give your best, make a difference. You have all these big dreams. You want to create for the company, put your name there, build a reputation within the company, get recognized, get promoted. You have all these thoughts when you first join a company, right? When you first start the job. Nobody goes into a job saying that, I just want to skive and, make the money I can get and get out, just lay low and just, go through the motion. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody does that, or at least not any decent human being would, any decent employee would. So how along the way we get this illusion, we disengage and we become something different. I think that is what we don't want to be. And it's very important for any organization, even if you are a solopreneur, to be engaged, because it determines everything. It determines the success personally yourself. It determines the success of the organization you're working with. It determines the success of the team you're working with, because you just need one bad apple to bring the entire team down, right? To bring the entire morale of the team down, to create a worse, toxic even culture within a work team or an organization. And I think that's why it's very, very important. It correlates to the performance of yourself, your team, and your company. And that's why I think it's very important to be engaged and to stay engaged as an employee.
That's awesome. I like that. Why don't we have Aldric?
Yeah, engagement is really important, but I think that is really something that we will only appreciate when we start disengaging ourselves from the environment that we're working in, and we all know how that feels. When the work that we put forth is not valued by the people around us, let's say our team when we first started out, or when our supervisors don't want to spend more than 5 minutes with us just to tell us like how things ought to be in terms of leadership, mentorship. The process of disengagement will start from them, and it will snowball. So the point is really something like I think we all have to start with what Kevin always mentioned, which is the relationships part, especially when we are first thrust into this foreign environment for the first time as employees, for fresh graduates, or for even experienced hires in companies for the first time. It's really important to know like how to get things done. How do we navigate ourselves within the choppy waters? I think that matters as a start in order to guarantee ourselves the highest level of engagement within the environment that we are operating in. Because the opposite starts very quickly. It starts very quickly, and we can't look outwards. We have to look inwards. The process of disengagement starts from us. The moment we feel, and that's subjective, right? Because it's emotional. The moment we feel that we are not being valued, we are not making an impact, or no one is listening to us, and guess what? We're gonna spend more time in the toilet cubicle. We're gonna fiddle with our phone a little bit more just beside our laptop. That happens, right? So I think that's usually the starting point. I don't think it's an experience that's unique for every individual. Even if it does, it rhymes in parallel. So the ability to really connect, make relationships, find our support system within the workplace is key. That's what I think engagement really is.
That's good. What about you, June?
Yeah, so I was an employee not too long ago in April. So this is something that I'm very passionate about as far as workplace culture and employee engagement. When you think about working your 9 to 5 and going there full time, you are seeing your coworkers more than you see your family. So you have to make sure that you enjoy working with them. And then also too, as far as employees want to have a sense of belonging, and they want to resonate with whatever mission the company is working towards to have that direct impact. So employee engagement is really important for someone to be successful, and then also for retention too as well. If the employee doesn't feel like they're being set up with success with performance reviews, or if they don't have that collaborative partnership, then they're like Aldric said, they're going to be mentally checked out. So companies really need to do their best to actually come up with different programs, networking groups, ERG groups to really build that community within employees, with all of the different departments in the organization.
That's good. About you, Tim?
I'm gonna keep it short and succinct because there's 6 of us. If you want productive employees, make sure they're engaged. Whenever I was engaged in a job, I was my most productive self. Whenever I was a leader at a job, I tried to make sure people were engaged. So if I ever needed something from them and I asked it, they would have no problem getting it done. So if you want productive employees, have engaged employees. That's it.
What about you, Mavis?
Actually all the sharings that you guys had are real and what is happening at work. And the other point that I want to bring out across is the willingness, because engagements is actually a two-way interactions. We all know that companies has been putting in place systems, processes, what kind of activities, in the company to engage the employee. And employee engagement is not a new topic. It has been around for decades. So it's always a constant battle of how I engage the employee, how I engage my team member, just alone itself. But however, it's actually a one-way approach. Many a times it's just about one-way approach. And now in today's context, we talk about having to engage the very minute willingness of the employee. Just like how Aldric say, if you disengage yourself from work, no matter how much engagements the company is going to provide to you, give you networking activities, give you responsibility, teaching you ownership of having to own your work. But if you're not willing to do, and it's not in your priority or your focus or area of interest, then you will not feel engaged at all, right? So one thing is about getting yourself engaged. So how do you get yourself? Different people's different unique interests and unique personality. Sometimes it's not about I want to be leader, or sometimes it's not about owning and ownership. It's about a lot of stuff. So some people likes to get achievements. Some people are just purely crossing the milestones at work. Yay, I've achieved a small wins. Yay, I've achieved a big win. Some people recognize themselves as being the top producer or top achievers in a company, and some just want to be comfortable at their zones. So in different levels, how do we engage them? We have to look in different angles and put in place things that engage everyone generically, but yet at the very respective levels on how we can engage their emotional availability. So I talk a lot about emotional availability. If it's actually a very unique thing that I actually listen across many people like Mel Robbins. They talk about willingness, and I talk to professors talking about how are you going to engage someone willingly. It's like having to dangle a carrot in front of a donkey. So the carrot in front of donkey, the donkey eats the carrot, the donkey feels full. But what else? Other than being filled, can the donkey eat more carrots? And how can you make this donkey move faster, like productivity? So many a times, we push, but if the donkey don't allow you to push, how are you going to push them? So there are things that how you can engage is just minute, a little bit of engagements.
And the donkey might prefer radish or potato. So you need to figure out and customize what to dangle in front of the donkey.
Yes. So actually, how do you customize or how do you find out? It's a lot through coaching conversations, coaching questions. And many a times in the organization, coachings are not well taken because they have a notions that it's a very expensive product or commodity. And it's going to be offered in the leadership positions. But what exactly? Because I have working professionals that comes with me for coaches. And they spend their own money, right? So, but during these coaching conversations, we find out a little bit more and deep dive. We really deep dive into what is all about the real roots. Why aren't you not engaged? Why are you not happy? What is the true meaning? And sometimes they say that probably, maybe this is a goal that is pictured by the leaders, but this is not what I want.
That's good. Yeah. Great insight here. And I agree with all of you. I mean, I don't have much to say anymore. But being an employer, I think your employees is everything, right? They are what makes and breaks a company. And an engaged employee is definitely very valuable. But what I have learned from, being both an employee and employer, and even in an executive role is communication. That's one of the key things. I think there is a lack of communication in so many organizations from the top to bottom. There's a miss, somewhere in between. So the bigger the company gets, the more the communication gets worse, right? And that's where I think June and Mavis, you both probably would agree. That's where systems has to come into play, right? Because the larger your organization, the more dispersed it is. A lot of times you got your, C levels, and then you got your management level, and then you got your supervisor level, and then you go down to your employees, right? And the more we're farther and farther apart, the harder it is. It becomes a challenge to engage, right? And now you add in pandemic, right? And you add in, remote teams. It makes it even more challenging. So my next question is, so when you were an employee, all right, what helped you engage with the employers you had, or the lack of, right? I want to hear some of your experiences. Yep.
I'll go. If possible, I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What helped? I think basing off what Aldric said, and most of you said as well, to me, really, it's the people around me that will keep me engaged, because, well, put it this way, right? With all this work from home, pandemic, lockdown, and all, what I really miss is having that lunchtime interaction with my colleagues face to face. Yeah. So that keeps me engaged. I mean, let's not talk about my boss or my subordinates. Let's just talk about me, myself, my peers around me, as friends, decent human beings. That keeps me engaged because in a way, you get that community support, right? One of you mentioned, that kind of I won't say accountability, but really the support system. Yeah, that was the word that Aldric used. The support system around you, the immediate people around you. I think that's very important, because if you have that kind of relationship keeping you at work, it's very hard for you to stray off and be disengaged. In fact, if you have a good relationship with the support system, people around you are going to feel that, hey, you are off. Are you okay? You seem a little bit moderate, delusion, disengaged, not productive. Why? What's happening? That keeps you back into the game. And let's face it, we're humans. We can't be 24/7 engaged, full on, 100%, 110%. You will burn out. So that's not possible. So you will sometimes check out. Definitely, we're not robots. But having that system around you, people around you, having that lunch conversation, hey, I'm not feeling too well because blah, blah, blah. Or even just gossiping and bitching about things, right? Oh, this new announcement, this organization is not working, blah, blah, blah. I think that helps with engagement. And I just want to get off, coming off the back of what Kevin and Mavis mentioned about being engaged also is with your bosses and that communications thing, right? Mavis, you mentioned that there are people actually who pay to get that career coaching. I think that's sad because it means that they haven't had that relationship and that communications with their boss. Okay, that is sad. To want to do that, it reflects badly on their boss or their organization because the communication gap is there. And to Kevin's point, yes, when you have an organization that's like huge and you have many layers, the engagement is going to be diluted. However, think of it this way: if at every layer, every subordinate has very good communications with their boss and they remain engaged, and this goes all the way up, it really doesn't matter how deep your organization, how many layers there is. So really the key is having the communications, establishing that relationship and checking in with your subordinates, or your subordinates having that relationship to know that I can speak my mind freely to my boss and he or she will help me. Therefore, I will remain engaged. I think that's important. It's really sometimes down to communications. And if it is done right every level, I think ideally everyone should remain engaged in an organization. So that's my little bit.
Great stuff.
Yes, I think definitely very true about it because as per my experience, if my boss is checking in with me and now and then, and it's just a little bit like a small token, say, hey, hi, Mavis, how are you doing in your work? Is there anything I can help? Or just say that, how's your day? Not talking about work.
Correct.
I think it's perfect. It shows empathy. It shows that you care
That's good.
for that being.
Yeah.
And not just a worker bee.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I do want to add though too, as far as like adding to what Mavis said, is like the willingness and the proactiveness of the employee. Other than building that partnership and team environment within your team, what are you doing to connect with other employees outside of your prospective team? Like for me, and I loved working at the previous company that I worked at because it was a startup, and the upside with working at a startup is you could have your hands on multiple projects and learn so many different areas. So I was always really interested in social media. So I was very proactive by establishing those relationships with social media directors and managers to learn what projects they were working on. And then another thing that I was really passionate about too is employee branding. So just really being curious and asking for help, asking for mentorship, and then also too, talking to your managers. I mean, if you don't want to spend the company's money on outsourcing for coaching, what you need to do is start asking for help and talk about up coaching. I've always had very successful relationships with my manager because I was very transparent. I said, hey, I want to do really well in your team. I want to hit all these KPIs. But in order for me to do that, I need you to be transparent with me and tell me what I need to do to improve. So that's really on the willingness of the employee to be proactive and kind of set those boundaries with their manager as well as their teammates too, to keep engaged and to keep motivated.
That's good.
Can I just chime in there on what Junette has said? In terms of culture, right? I think that's harder in APAC, in Asia, because we have this power distance thing. Oh, boss is like, God, I don't want to air what I don't know. I don't want to show that I'm weak. I just want to do my best because, maybe my boss is kind of the aloof type. So it just really boils down to communication. But
Jeremy,
sometimes...
you better watch what you say. Maybe your boss is watching.
My My boss is in US. No, don't worry. My boss is. I have a few bosses, but it's always they know me. I will ask for permission to speak freely, and I'll just let go. Right. Transparency is important, and I think culturally we have to be mindful. So I think it starts with the boss. If the boss sets that I won't say boundary, or don't set that boundary and say that feel free to speak with me. I'm just also a human being trying to make things work. It just happens that I'm leading you. If you succeed, I will succeed at the same time. So let's talk. I think if you can bring yourself down to that level and let them know that, hey, I'm just doing my best, just like what you're trying to do. We are a team, like it or not. Make it sink or swim. We're in this together. So the more you communicate with me, the better. I'm here to help solve your problem. And if I can't, I'll try and find someone who can solve your problem. I think that if you establish that connection from day one, it will be much easier, because in Asia, it's really hard. People fear their bosses sometimes. They don't want to show that weakness or vulnerability to want to come to you. So I just wanted to chime in on that.
No, I totally get that too. And I think that's an important thing to talk about too, as well, as far as like the differences in culture. And because the startup I was working in, I was focusing mainly in the logistics team, and most of the employees were going back and forth between China and SF. And the employees, I'm in recruiting, but it's like a function of HR, but I was everyone's counselor and, and therapist. And when it comes to the job. But there was a lot of employees that wanted to voice their opinions and ask for feedback, but they didn't know how, because they didn't want to step on their manager's toes, because culturally it's not acceptable by the social norm from whatever country we're from. So I'm glad you brought that up. So it's,
That's great.
I think as an employee, I would say it's a two-way street, right? Because you have to be open to communicate, to June's point, right? You have to be able to say to your employer what makes you tick, even if they're not gonna ask you. But then it's on the employer or the boss to also listen. And I think that's a two-way street. I mean, if you're a good leader, then you should be the one asking the questions. But, listen, it doesn't mean as an employee, you can't also say, hey, this is what makes me go. And I had a very good relationship with one of my bosses, and we spoke almost never. We spoke like once a month. It was an outside sales guy. And we had the best relationship ever. We talked for like 20 minutes. We'd catch up, and that was it. He left me off to the races. It worked perfectly, right? So we kind of had that relationship with each other. He knew, okay, you're self-motivated. I'm just going to leave you the hell alone. Perfect. Thank you. Because when people try to put their thumb on top of me and analyze everything, I hate it, because I know everything that I'm doing. So when I'm on a job, I'm paying attention to what's going on. So if you're trying to put your thumb on top of me, it just drives me nuts, because I'm like, you're wasting both of our times right now. Like, ask 3 questions, you'll get the answers. Let's move on with our lives so I can continue working. So I think honestly it's just a two-way street. I mean, that's serious. Like that's how I am. I just want to be left out alone, and I'll be super productive. That's it. But not everybody's like that, and I think it's important. Like I said, it's a two-way street. That communication has to be there. If you need a little bit more coaching and balance, and you need more, you need to also, as an employee, be able to ask for it. And then if you're a leader and you see somebody struggling, then you should also take the initiative and ask them, what do you need from me? So it's a two-way street, but I think employee engagement, it does fall sometimes on the employee. You can't check out if you've never tried to communicate with your boss. Now, if you've made the attempts and they don't listen, that's a different ball game altogether. Totally understand getting checked out in that case. But that's my take.
And I think to Tim's point too, I think the best managers I had in my career are the ones that actually understood me and took the time and understand my personality and who I am. And instead of basing it just by the books, and actually took the time to really understand, hey, how, like Mavis said, where does Kevin perform best at? What kind of environment and the how. And I think that's huge, right? And then also, I think as an employee, to June's point, it's so important, engage with other employees. Don't, I know there are some people that are a little more introverted, but that's how you get used to the company culture. And sometimes you need to take a step personally to do that. No one's gonna hold your hands for you, because most of us are adults by the time we get into the workforce. No one's gonna baby you. So you need to actually take the step and put yourself out there. And myself, I'm an introvert. And slowly, throughout my career, I do live shows and I talk on video all the time, but it took time. It was developed, right? I am your typical Asian guy. Okay. When I first entry-level employee, I just worked really hard and pretty much don't talk to people and started working. I started my career as a software engineer. They put me in the middle office, and I coded, and the people that surrounded me are introverts as well. Majority of them were nerds, they don't talk. They talk about tech, robotics, and different things like that. But slowly, I started traveling. I made the point. I was like, man, if I want to start understanding different things on how to write better software, I need to understand the different departments. Mm-hmm. So I started going into the logistics department. I walk over to the sales department, and then I started talking to those guys. And I was like, these guys are actually a lot funner than the developers I'm around. Nothing against developers, right? And then I catch myself. Now I'm 4 hours in the sales department because those guys are really fun, And then I started, getting more outgoing because they rub off on me. And I think that's how employee engagement works. It's the culture that you create, right? Where your employees can be comfortable to engage with other people. If there's so much gossip by management and people up top, why would I talk to my other employees? Because I'm afraid it comes back on me. So I think that as an employee, it's important to create culture where people feel safe to talk to someone else. There has to be a trust factor. So that's my take. Yep. You, Aldric?
I think, can I add on something?
I love how this... Oh, go ahead, Mavis.
Oh, okay. So I was actually, thinking about not just creating a safe environment for communications to be transparent, and also to build a culture, the safe environment to build a culture right from the start. But I think it's about mindset. Mm-hmm. It's about mindset on how you can break through, like an employee mindset versus an employee mindset with the employer. And also the different work generations within the workforce in the company, the mindsets on how to communicate with each other. You see, so it's like a debate that I have with my brother over the weekend, and he was asking me, Mavis, so how do you manage millennials, for example? I say, okay, that what do you mean as managing millennials? You mean you subcategorize everybody in the workforce according to their generations? I think it's about mindset. So I was telling him it's about mindset. It's an example. It's like if the future generations, how they think about working and learning at work, and how we learn and work at work is very different. So it's about engaging that mindset and understanding how they work and learn. Like, I was talking and some friends was sharing with me young working professionals, and they make a mistakes and they just let it be. And the boss says that you better, correct the mistakes. If not, I'm going to deduct your salary. But then to that person, it goes, okay, and there's no news whatsoever when the boss checked back. So what have you done? I thought you're going to deduct my pay. So simple as that is the mindset. And it goes like, okay, one mindset is I need you to correct, and the other mindset is that, no, you said that you're going to deduct. So what am I going to do? That's nothing to do, right? So it's like a proactive. So the communications and the environment of learning is also very important within the organization, how you build that culture to cultivate learning and make awareness of the mindset too.
Right.
That's good.
Aldric?
Yeah, Aldric.
Okay.
You were saying?
I'm actually very fascinated by the way this conversation has expanded I'm just thinking along the lines of really understanding people, especially those that's within our first degree of working relationships. For instance, like I felt like I know Timothy for the longest time, and I would not even want or bother to manage Timothy. Just go.
Sorry, Aldric,
tell
no
you what
fire you,
expectations
Chen.
are. No. I mean, like, I'll tell you what the expectations are, and off you go. Come back to me when you have issues, and we'll iron out together. I think that's the best support that Tim would be looking for, because for people who are very individual, the last thing they want is to go through a set of standard operating procedures. Don't just leave me alone. You know, like it doesn't work. I've been through that. June was mentioning that she worked in big tech. Where I first started out, I worked in big tech too, but not the FANGs. It was the Accenture, the IBMs, the system integrators. So as junior consultants, there are people of many sorts and many types. There are those where they need a lot of guidance in terms of what the next step is, the next few steps are, and things like that. And naturally, that builds rapport with the direct supervisors very easily, because you can feel like they're always around you. You can feel it. But there's always the other group of people who believe in exploring things on their own. So this group of people will always be, you know, the kind where just throw yourself at the deep end of the pool, you know, and if you're struggling, let me know. I fall into that camp. I don't want people to tell me what to do. I want to figure things out. I want to know this, right? So I took on this this characteristic with me as I move up the ranks, and that's how I developed my team. I have team members that are like Tim, in a way. And I told her this. I said, there's no such thing as management in my team. You have your job to do. I have mine. So go do it. But let me know just one thing. If you think that you have just screwed up with the client, I want you to be the first one to tell me, not the client. So I can think of ways to save you. You have to be the one that comes to me first.
Yeah.
When all that is squared off, we are good. So go ahead. And I have no qualms actually taking junior or middle level professionals to push them up to take over what I'm doing. For instance, as the project manager or as a co-deal manager. I have no issues with that, because what that means is then I will have the capacity to work alongside my boss, and then I can grow too. So there's many ways in which we can get engagement. Sometimes it's not that direct. Like, engagement doesn't always have to be like huddling together. It depends on the profile. Timothy won't appreciate that. I won't appreciate that. I mean, in a way that we are stereotypical alphas, the best way you can get us to engage is to leave us alone. Tell me what you want. I'm going to give it to you.
It's true. He's 100% right.
I'll give it to you. Do not tell me the process. I'll figure things out. And only if I can't deliver, let's talk. But I think characters like ourselves is a little difficult to be managed in a workplace. I get that. I get that. So,
there's a reason why we went on right, Aldric?
Yeah, but the question that we have to ask ourselves when it comes to employee engagement really is the opposite of what I'm saying a desirable state within a workplace. If you are in a capacity of a lead and everyone in your team is dependent on you, what does that say in terms of productivity, results, efficiency, and all the standard matrices? All the standard matrices. I think the first one to be burned out is going to be the team lead or the manager, not the team members. for sure. So I think that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. What's the kind of workplace that we are actually contributing to and building? That's really the point for me.
Yeah.
That's good. So where do you guys see employee engagement now that so many corporations and company have moved remote? I want to just hear from, let's start with June because you're in recruiting, and then Mavis, since you guys are in the, a role where you're helping people engage, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see what companies are doing to be creative, to keep with engagement. Of course, I think it was maybe Jeremy's post, but what happens when all of the fancy perks are gone as far as the free food, free happy hours? Are employees still going to want to work for that company? It's just a bare bones. But I think from what I've been talking to with my clients and actually my network of recruiters, a lot of companies are doing virtual like happy hours or virtual. There's a lot of programs around mindfulness to keep the employees' morale up, just because these are some stressful times for working parents, for employees that maybe, like, for example, like for all of these like junior employees where they're in the first year of their career and they moved across the state to California, to the Bay Area, and all of their family is in New York and they can't move back. They really lean on their coworkers for community and that friendship, and now that's taken away. So how are they going to be productive and happy to go to work every day if they don't see them face to face? But a lot of these companies are doing these little different like theme Fridays or happy hours, or where they have different virtual events to kind of keep tabs on their employees and do different fun creative things. I know there's like Pajama Day Friday that they're doing. Companies are getting creative. I don't know. You know how they have these, like,
every day is pajama day now.
Right?
That's how I am.
There's like
I'm ready for bed right after the show, guys.
I see this article on LinkedIn. There's like a LinkedIn uniform where it's like all business on top and then pajamas on the bottom, like all round at the bottom. But I've also seen companies send different like care packages to their employees as far as like snacks. So it's interesting to see how companies are trying to, support their employees. I know Facebook, when everything happened, because I have a few friends that work at the recruiting teams there, they gave their employees like $1,000 bonus to support them through this pandemic. So I think this is also really important too. When everything is going back to normal, I think it's really important for employees or candidates to ask companies, what did you do to support your employees during the pandemic? That's going to really speak volumes of the company culture and how they treat their employees. So I hope companies are going to really use this time to really kind of reflect on what they can really do to improve the culture and the engagement with their employees.
That's good.
Yeah.
June, if I may comment, what you just mentioned are companies that are fortunate to be in a position to do more for the employees. I think, to me at least, I think to keep employees engaged, I think what companies really could do, those especially they are bleeding through this pandemic, do not lay off people. I think that's basic. Yeah. You don't need care packages. Just don't lay anyone off, right? Yeah. Stick with the employees. I think that's a minimum.
I do want to add this too. I was laid off because COVID really hit big time in my company. What I wish would have happened is an opportunity to work on different teams that had the need.
Or take a pay cut, right? Everyone takes a pay cut.
Exactly.
Right through this together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I think there was actually one company that surveyed all of their employees on what can we do to save you, and are you willing to take a pay cut? I forget what the company was. I don't know what the company was called, but yeah, I would rather see companies doing that to be proactive on retaining their employees, because it sucks to be laid off during a pandemic.
Yeah,
exactly. And And that's communication, right? The company engaging the employees, communicate, how can we help you, right? And the employees might be willing to take pay cuts to help the company back. You know, if there's that communication, there's engagement, and then things will not be as bad as opposed to one side, one-way street, the company taking a decision, be it care packages or layoffs, two extremes. Where's the communication?
Yeah.
That's great.
I also want to add on this too. I'm just very, very passionate about this, but how companies treat their employees after they lay off. Like Airbnb did an amazing job where they did have to lay off, I think it was 3,000 employees, but they created this online profile that shared all of the employees that were laid off. And I believe they actually let all of their employees keep their laptops.
Airbnb, I think.
I think it was Airbnb.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry, I
awesome.
just had to chime in.
That's right. Got me
That's
going.
good. That's good. That's
What
good.
about you, Mavis?
I think during this pandemic, it's about supporting each other, like really give real support, and like when we talk about well-being and mental wellness, or even how do we actually keep on that mind, the whole entire spirit up, because everybody are scared, everybody are fear, and they look at people around them, people get laid off, and they kind of like scared, when is my turn, or how can I do. So right now, it's actually a chance for companies to actually relook at where their culture is. If they are relooking at just reorganizing their culture and laying off people, then they are not relooking the culture entirely. Sometimes, companies take this opportunity and says that, hey, I'm going to reorg. But when it comes to reorg, and I ask them, so why do you do reorg? We laid off some people, but are you going to relook at your culture and you starting right, having to communicate? It's an unfortunate thing for this crisis, and we didn't expect, but all of us has to take, and we bear everything. But what about the individual themselves? Then it will say that, hey, it's very unfair, and that breaks down the employee engagement, and it's never going to solve that kind of belief or that problem that has been always the case. So you're going to have topics like, how am I going to do? And the next thing is about empathy. Then the next thing is about employee experience. Then the next thing is about employer and branding. All these things comes up. So what is it that we are trying to say to people that is working with us? Hey, you are not, you're working with us. We thank you. And we really appreciate. So how are we going to grow? Because like what we say initially, all of us, if you look at 24 hours of our clock, we spend at least about 50 to 60% of our time at work. And if we don't engage ourselves at work, who will? And even if the employer is going to engage us at work and give us all this support, all these things, because I do know leaders like myself, I will reach out with my team members and I will check it. So, hey, can I check, do you have any thoughts about it? Feel free to share your thoughts along the way. We have a chat group. Just feel free. But that feel free environment, when I want to start right and start the culture, but different people with different personality has different opinions, feel free. So once they read feel free, their mind may be going through, can I say this? Is it right to say this? Does it make sense? I don't want to look stupid and all, kind of stuff. So then it boils down to they bottling up what their down spirit is. And no matter how much I want to engage my team members and try to spurt them out, they are in that zone of, I'm just this. So many times I have to sit down with them and one-to-one and really talk to them and say, hey, just share with me, So currently what are you going through? Where are you right now? What are you experiencing? What are you feeling? I don't want to talk about where are you right now, but what are you feeling right now? I'm feeling down. Okay, so why are you feeling down? What is it that makes you down? So they share. And in start one conversation at a time. Is about step by step, baby steps. So one thing at a time, we go. And when that environment creates, that's when the communications can flow. And the support that comes after that flows freely and gets more immense appreciation. If not, it's just another bento set. Because I do recognize one company in Singapore that sends an insurance company in Singapore particularly, they send island-wide 3,000 bentos But the bentos come to the insurance agents at different hours. You have lunch bentos, but it comes at 2 p.m. But then it wasn't a message. It was supposed to be a surprise. But then when the employee gets that, there was no direct communications, and it goes, oh, yay, it's a bento. Then what it goes? Nothing. There's no immense appreciation. It's just, yay, it's bento, but it comes at 2 p.m. Why are you telling me a bento at 2 p.m.? But we can't have 3,000 deliveries at the same time. Phew, go now, right? Yeah, that's the interactions I'm talking about.
That's good.
Yeah. I think during the pandemic, the empathy piece that you mentioned, Mavis, is probably the most important thing, right? If you want to keep your employees engaged, put yourself in their shoes for a second, right? What are they feeling? They're probably a little scared. They're uncertain. So then, okay, what can we do to ease the fears and uncertainty? Communication, like everybody said, hey, what do you need from the company? What can we do to make your experience better? And if people feel that genuine appreciation and they feel that their company has their back and is attempting to communicate with them, then they're willing to communicate back because they feel like their company has their back. So they're going to have the company's back. So I think that in the empathy piece, if you're struggling with employee engagement during the pandemic, as an employer, you probably have to look in the mirror and say, well, are we reaching out? And are we doing the things that our employees are going to appreciate? And do they feel like we have their back in this moment? Because, let's be honest. I mean, it's been going on for a while, and there's still a ton of uncertainty. I mean, nobody knows which way is up. Still, you know what I mean? Yep. So I think the reality is you have to stay, the empathy thing is not a one-time thing. It's, okay, how are you doing this week? What are you struggling with? Checking in with your people, doing things like that. So I think during a pandemic, that's probably the biggest thing you could possibly do to keep your employees engaged is put yourself in their shoes for a minute and realize, hey, there's still a lot of stuff that they don't know. Listen, and it's all individual too. Some people like Aldric and I talked about, maybe they're just plugging along. Okay, don't reach out to that person. Leave them be. But if somebody is struggling, if you're seeing that you haven't heard from them in a while, then they're usually a little bit more active. Stop for a second. What's going on? Like Mavis said, let's talk about this. So that's my take on engagement during the pandemic.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think Mavis has something to say.
Oh no, it's okay, Aldric.
Okay.
So
I think there has been comments on our live chat that talks about employee engagement actually going up during the pandemic. While consuming those statistics, I think it's also very important to question why so. Because the reason for the engagement, is it intrinsic or is it predicated on the fear of retrenchment? We have to understand that. Otherwise, every single metric will just look very rosy, and we will not get to the point where reality is. Right? So if I were to master a guess, it would be that that the fear of the unknown is actually driving engagement up in the workplace or when we are working from home. Now, there's one perspective. I think we have spent over 50 minutes on this topic for employee engagement, but we have to understand one thing, that it is an ecosystem that we are talking about. Has anyone at this point of time or in time taken a point of consideration for the entrepreneurs? Everyone is just chiming. Take care of me, take care of me, and take care of me. How about the business owners? What about the employers? What about the C-levels? The amount of pressure that they are facing today is unprecedented, especially if they have not gone through the banking crisis during the 08, 09, and 2010 years. It is a test of their competence. No one talks about, how can we help you? How can we engage with you and take the business forward? Everyone is thinking about, can you listen to me? Can you not retrench me? Can I keep my job? Right? Everyone is thinking about that. Now, from that perspective, if we put it up at a 10,000 feet high and we look at the ecosystem, the demands are lopsided. Everyone wants help. Now, I get that. But how about this? We are in the same ship together. If the captain goes, who is in a better position to steer us to safety? Who is in a better position to help us navigate through the choppy waters? Right? So I think the point is engagement, empathy, consideration, as well as a higher level of understanding, which is important because when the economic engine goes away, everyone can be engaged at home. Everyone.
Yeah.
You can be totally engaged at home because that's the only thing that we have all the time in the world to, like literally, WhatsApp, how are you? Hi. We can have time engagement all time. I mean, it's true,
It's
right?
true.
Is it
Yeah.
relevant? Now, I have one interesting story to share. I mean, like, I have friends who have been having issues to get some of their ops personnel to do a bit of sales. Now, naturally, it's not in their inclination because if I'm extroverted, I want to meet people, I would be in the marketing or the business development or the sales team to begin with, right? But we are talking about extraordinary times here. I'm trying to reach out to all of you to say that, hey, I want to keep all of you. I want to, because I know if I release you, the probability of you getting a job now is close to zero. Right? But for us to do that, let's keep the ship in shape.
Float.
Can you help us to do a bit of sales support or prospecting? And I can give you the corresponding commission.
Yep.
I want all of us to work together. But the pushback is tremendous. I just want my job. Please don't get me to do sales. I don't want the commission. I just want my salary. You don't cut salary and things like that. Now we have a conversation. Now we have a conversation. Now look, is it really, like as Timothy said, two-way, or has it always been one way? We want to talk about engagement. It has to be at the ecosystem level. My take.
That's good.
My take.
That's really good.
Well, Aldric, I want to add to that a little bit, right? First of all, I think you're absolutely right. What I'll say about that is two things. The first thing is, look, there has to be transparency from an owner/entrepreneur in order for that to work. Because the thing is, and this has just been my experience, right? Not every, but most entrepreneurs/owners want to tell you it's okay until it's not okay, right? Versus, I'm serious, versus instead of just saying, look, excuse my language, shit's fucked up, right? Things are bad. Like, let's work through this together. And I think if you have that vulnerability, then it's much easier, because that's kind of always been my take, right? As a leader, if things are bad, I want to tell you, like, look, it's not okay. So we either need to work together, or if we don't work together, something's going to give, right? And I'd be transparent with people, first of all, because their job's on the line. So I'd be like, look, something's going to give. One or two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to go, or you're going to go, or we're both going to go. So let's work through this together and figure it out, because if not, I may have to cut you. That's it, right? That's just the bottom line. And when you put it in that perspective, yes, the fear aspect is there, but the reality is there. the reality is there. It's like, look, like, I get it. You don't want to do this. Neither do I. So what, right? We got to do what we got to do to maintain our positions. We have to do what we have to do to keep the company afloat. So I think in order for that to work and in order for it to be a two-way street, the entrepreneur also has to be willing to have that conversation with an employee. Because if not, you know, again, if you want to act like everything's okay, then the employee is on their end going to say, well, everything's just fine. You know, to every employee, they think the company makes gobs of money and everything's perfect, right? And I know Kevin can speak to that intelligently because he has plenty of employees, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, to them, they all think everything's good. The company makes loads of money. Look how much money you make. They don't take into account the expense. So I think realistically, in order for that to be a two-way street, you have to have those kind of conversations. But I agree with you 100%. I think you're right in the fact that employees will push back and say, look, no, I just want to do what I want to do. That's it, right? And at that point, well, again, me as an employer, in the transparency way, I'm going to say, well, if that's your stance, I think something's going to have to give. Because unfortunately, this is just what it is, right? Mm-hmm. We're in the midst of a pandemic. If you want to keep your job, we all got to do extra. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it doesn't work. The company can shut down. So you want to keep your job. You're not going to have a job anyway. And I think that's kind of really important, whether you're a leader or an entrepreneur / owner, to be able to have that conversation. And again, that leads to employee engagement. If I feel like if somebody has that conversation with me and I'm engaged in the company, I'm like, all right, screw it, let's go all in, because I need to keep my job. Mm-hmm. Right? So I think that's a big piece of it as well.
That's good, because I do agree. You know, as an employer, I think communication is so key, and you know there has to be a level of transparency. But at the same time, I mean, right now to our audience, right? We have to understand we're going through a global pandemic, and just look at our government alone, right? Even their leadership, they don't know what's going on, you know? And people give so much crap to news or fake news or government's bad. The truth is, I actually have a lot of empathy for them. I would hate to be a president or, you know, a leader of a country right now, because just leading my little boutique agency is hard enough. So I can't imagine leading an entire country, right? And we don't give these leaders enough credit, right? It's not like they wave a wand and they're going to solve this pandemic. To be honest, they don't even know. It's a virus. Come on, people. You know, it's a virus. And we only have maybe six months of data. Mm-hmm. You know, and even in the marketing world, 6 months of data or 7 months is nothing. Mm-hmm. And right now you're talking about 7 months of data to try to solve this global virus. You know, come on, people. We have I'm sure all the best doctors are on it. Everyone's trying to figure it out. Every country is trying to figure it out. That's why it's on the news every day. Mm-hmm. You know, it's no one slacking. You know, there's no one. It doesn't matter what level of leadership. Okay, we're all suffering. Okay, and to Aldric's point, people don't give the employers enough. You know, and you know, to you guys' point, you know, sometimes it's like employees think you're an ATM. You know, when things, you know, when things hit the fan, like Timothy said. Guess who they call? Let's call the boss. Let's call the manager. Hey, what can you do for me? Well, I don't know. Who's going to help me? You know? So, I mean, there's a level of understanding. I mean, empathy is important from an employee and an employer, you know? And if you've been a good employee and you get let go, there might be a reason, you know, because the company's really struggling. You know, they can't keep you if they have no money to pay you. So to Aldric's point, you know, hey, if you can bring revenue into the company, they're going to help keep you, you know? So what can you do? You know, maybe you can step it up. It might not be the norm, but it's like Aldric said, this is not normal times. Okay. We're going through a pandemic And it's like, what can you give back? How can you help, right? And to Tim's point, it's right, leaders need to be big boys. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be weak. It's okay to showcase that, hey, we're not making it. We're not surviving. I need help. It goes both ways. And I think this is a great conversation because, it hits home. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I do want to add that this whole remote working and this pandemic is really going to weed out the underperformers, the people that are just kind of just coasting it. And like Aldric said, to his point is, instead of being the one that's always asking, where's my bonus, or where's this, or what are you going to do to support me and my family, which makes sense because this is something that we've never faced. But if you want to step up in your career, if you want to get promoted, if you want to do that, you're not going to run away from problems. You're going to go to the problems and fix it. Yeah. What are you going to do to bring more revenue to the company? And this is why I love like entrepreneurship and startups, is because I'm constantly thinking outside of the box. And for me, it's like I was giving so many great ideas to the company that I was working for. And this is the first time that I'm actually using those ideas and doing it for myself, which is
awesome.
Good.
Which is crazy because I see the impact. But I'm saying for people, especially within the Gen Z generation, because I think the generation thing, as far as from the coaching side, where I've experienced working with candidates or even employees in that generation where they're not, I'm not going to say anything, but it's just different. It's a different kind of mind. I'm going to say it's a different mindset, like fixed mindset and then growth mindset. The people that are going to be successful are always going to constantly think of different ways to be creative and run towards the problem. So I'm saying that as far as like level of engagement, instead of just checking in with your managers, letting them know, oh, I'm clocking in, bring a new idea to the table, and see where that takes you. That's going to keep your job. That's going to showcase that you stepped outside of the box, and that will get you a promotion down the road. And you can say, hey, remember 5 years ago when we dealt with this pandemic? Oh, now I'm a director of sales because this is what I brought to the company.
Hey, Jen, to your point, right? I'm just going to say it right here, right? So the generations don't matter. The different generations have felt hardship and have been impacted, right? I think because of the pandemic, the Generation Z is going to be stronger and better. Because the issue with Gen Z is they've never experienced anything yet. I'm just going to say it right here, right? Let's be transparent, right? Yeah. The reason I understand where to position myself for this pandemic is because I went through a bankruptcy in 2007. I understand in 2008 what it took for me to rebuild. I understand, hey, how I should spend, and I have gratitude.
Yes.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah. When Gen Z happened, you got to remember, we were in the best times of our economy.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone people were going to college, families were doing well, more vacations than ever in the US. I think on a global level, right? More retail purchases.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we can't blame the generation. It has to do with, the time and space that they're born into, right? Which is outside their control. But because of the pandemic, the Gen Zs are going to survive it. I think they're going to come out better because guess what? The next time, they're going to be ready. They're going to be more prepared.
Yeah. Also, too, they have like the tools. They have the internet. They have LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I had MySpace and Friendster. What did that do? But I wasn't trying to say generation. I think it all has to do with mindset, like I said.
Yep.
No, I get it.
And I think is that
Mavis, go ahead. Mavis, go ahead.
And I think is that this pandemic, the key lessons that everybody of all generations, especially the Gen Z generation, is going to learn is about empathy. not just leaders and leadership empathy, leaders empathy, the team members, but themselves will have to put themselves in their shoes to like, hey, you know, that's what I've always teaching my working professionals, young working professionals think about. You have to put yourself in their shoes and think like them. You know, what are they
That's good.
experiencing? If you do not know what they're experiencing, you do not know what they're asking for, what's in it for me. It's always a what's in it for everyone. But what is in it for them is never going to equate to what's in it for you. So if you're going to survive this pandemic, it's always a mutual understanding of what's in it for us. And us means you and me. So I want to keep my job, you want to keep your job, then you have to understand and consider people's feeling, consider your leaders' feeling, consider your leaders' positions. It's never easy. It's not easy to be an employee. It's not even easy for an entrepreneur / business owners or leaders. Myself, it's not easy. So what I do is that I actually open up my communications very clear and I say, hey, you know, businesses stand still, but I'm still keep doing. I want to find one thing, and I always tell that one thing to all my team members. There will be an opportunity lies within a crisis. Let's search for that opportunity. Can we do that to search that opportunity? Are you in it with me in that opportunity? Because you see, sectors are going down, but sectors are booming up. So definitely it's a cyclical effect. There will always be a winners and there will always be a losers. But can we be the winners within this crisis? Can we come out of it winners together? Because without you, I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to win alone because I need you to help me. So that's basically how I translate empathy. But now I'm throwing back the ball to them. So what do you think? How do you feel? What's your thoughts? So this is
so good.
An entrepreneur point of view or a business point of view, you know. Yeah, many a times I need them to tell me because I'm not a worm in their stomach. I can't read minds. I don't have that superpower. So that's the main thing that, you know, we are struggling as business owner or entrepreneurs to really read the mind.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to link everything together, what everyone just said. I just have to let it go. So many great things shared here, okay? I'm going to try, okay? So, Aldric, you mentioned, you know, the ecosystem thing. Totally agree. And to connect that to what June has said, right? This is going to weed out the bad performers or people who are so concerned about self-entitlement. What are you going to do for me? What is this in for me, right? So if there are people like what you, Aldric, mentioned, there are pushbacks. And then if there are people who actually push back and not want to take something more, these are the ones, precisely the people who are not engaged. They are not engaged. They are just thinking about themselves. They're not engaged with their organizations. They're not engaged with their boss. All they think is about themselves, self-entitlement, whatever. This is regardless of generations, right? I think this is regardless of generations. So that's one thing. To Tim's point, right? I really forgot what the point I was going to make, but I was going to say whatever Aldric mentioned and whatever Tim mentioned, those conversations are not happening enough, okay? In some MNC context, MNC, I'm not saying it's mine. I'm not saying it's in the MNC I'm working in, but we've seen all this before. We've seen all this before in good times and bad times. In good times, you have MNCs going into town halls and the CEO saying, you know, we're doing really well in Q3, Q4. These are statements to present to shareholders. You know, I've been in a call in my previous organization where the president was saying that, oh, we're doing very well this quarter, next quarter, blah, blah, blah. And there was an employee question. Oh, so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, you say we're doing so well by this percentage. Are we going to get bonus then of a matching percentage? Something to that degree, you know? And how are you going to answer that, right? You're painting a good picture, right? So rightfully, the employees should be rewarded in the same magnitude or better than previously, right? So questions like that. And in the current pandemic context, I do feel that a lot of companies are still in that mode, trying to present a good picture to employees and external stakeholders alike, telling them that everything is fine, we're still on track, or maybe we took a little bit of hit here and there. And that's what they are telling to employees in employee town halls. However, what is actually happening is layoffs are on the plan. And because everyone is working from home, there has never been an easier and better time to lay people off because you will not see the person with that box keeping their things. Nobody's around to see that, right?
Yeah.
So and to Andy, one of our viewers, Andy's point, right? HR leaders, transformation leaders, whatever. This is the best time for you to show that you care. This is time to step up. Because if you're still doing the things that don't matter to the eyes of the employees, you're gonna dangle a carrot where this donkey is a meat eater. It's not gonna work. I give you an example, right? Tell the employees what works. Okay. I give an example from my own personal organization, right? We get emails from HR sending about mindfulness. This is what it can do, taking care of your mental welfare, etc., etc. But you know what? That means nothing to most of employees, and I can speak for most people, because what's on their top of their head is, do I still get a job next month? Do I still have a job next month? How about telling the employee, hey, this is the situation in the company. Okay, we could probably hold off for another 2 months. After that, there might be retrenchments. How about telling them that? How about telling them that, however, if everyone takes a 20% pay cut, we could probably keep everyone's job for another 6 months. Are you in or out? How about communications like that? Come on, you are telling me that with all the financial analytics, everything data on hand, you can't plan for such scenarios? You can't tell if everyone took a 10% cut, for example. Maybe we can hold off layoffs for another 6 months. You mean nobody in the company is doing such projections? I don't believe that.
Well, Jeremy.
But if this kind of conversation taking place, I don't know. But I don't think so. It's not taking place enough.
Jeremy, I want to just
Kevin.
chime in on here. Okay.
Yeah.
It goes back to, think about it though. When you're talking about a company stakeholders, let's talk about the global leaders. There's no difference, right? Right
Exactly.
now, if you're in a government position, if you watch the news,
yep.
Do you believe all the analytics and the stats? There's no way the president or the dictator, whoever, right? The leaders, right? There's no way they don't have the hard facts and numbers. But there's a balance. And as a leader, I understand there's a balance of how much fear you can inject into the people that you're leading and how much truth you can get that can create even more, because everyone, it goes back to Mavis' point, right? We're all created different and psychologically we're different, right? So some people can take, hey, my ship's about to sink. You're out of luck, dude. And they'll be like, okay, what can I do to? Others are going to be jumping off buildings, So right now, like people give, like in the U.S., I can only speak in the U.S. because I live in the U.S., right? So a lot of people are going, oh, all this fear is happening and all this stuff. And why don't they just tell us the truth? And I go, if you're a leader right now in the U.S., it's a lose-lose either way. Left, right, you lose, okay? You can say put on a mask and it's a loss. You can say don't put on a mask and you're wrong too. You can't, as in leadership, you can't please everyone. And that's why there is layoffs. That's why we fire people, and that's just the reality. Good times or bad times, right? As humans, a lot of times we're just entitled to what we think is the right perspective, right? But at the end of the day, we all have different perspective based on our experience and our feelings and our ideas, our mindset. There's so much that goes into it. And so my thing is so for an employer, it's also hard too, to balance what to tell, because what if you say this and then all the employees quit? And now you're in trouble too, So there is a balance of how much you can actually tell the truth and how much you can hang on. And so I think we need to become better leaders, but we also have to become better employees. And at the same time, right? Just like being a global citizen, right?
Fair enough.
Regardless if I agree with the global leader. Yep, go ahead. So I was going to say, regardless if I agree with a global leader, I have
Kevin,
to.
go first.
Okay, so I was saying, regardless if I agree with my global leadership, right? I have to be responsible as a citizen, right? to do what is best, for everyone else, right? As much as possible, right? What makes the most sense, regardless if I believe in wearing a mask or not, right? Okay, worst case scenario, I wear a mask. Let's say I'm being stupid, right? The only thing that will affect me is I wore a mask, okay? And it's a little uncomfortable. Wearing a mask isn't going to increase more people dying or anything. So, why not do it, right? Same thing. If you're an employee, the best you can do is do your job right and engage as much as possible and be a positive employee and do what you can, with the data that they give you, right? And if you don't like the job, guess what? The opportunities are out there. Go create it. Become an entrepreneur. There's a lot of global coaches, consultants, and a lot of things that you can do, right? And there's one thing that I want to say. For my father is an entrepreneur. So before he passed away, he always told me, if you're not happy with a job or unhappy with your management, whatever, you're not going to change that. You're the person that's going to change that, Kevin. So instead of ever complaining about it, or if you already approach them and it's not going to change, the best thing you can do is walk away. You create your own environment. So no one's putting a gun to your head to keep your job. So my dad goes, you create your own opportunities. So you own it to yourself. So don't ever blame the employer, because the employer's not holding a gun to your head and go, hey, you have to work for me.
Yep.
You can quit and create your own company. So that's just my thought. Yep.
Aldric, you want to go?
Yeah,
Aldric.
it's just my closing comment. It's my closing comment on what Jeremy just mentioned in terms of communication. I think let's just be a little more aware in terms of the environment that we are in now. That leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs, they are all hands on deck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain. Now, then the question comes in terms of the time. If I'm also working starting at 5:30 a.m., my lunchtime is a lunchtime meeting, my dinner is a dinner meeting, and my day doesn't end until midnight or 1 a.m. Okay? I understand that communication across the board is very important, but where I'm spending my time now, I'm thinking about my business. I'm thinking if I can sustain to 2021. I'm thinking about, my business is crowd-funded. I need to think about the path to profitability to pay back to my investors in times like this. So I think when it comes to like really communication and knowing what the company is going through, I have one proposal, but it's a little immature, but it's just a food for thought. How about this? We go the on-the-job training model. I tag some of you along with me, follow me for a day. A day. We go through that 20 hours together, everything. So you know what I'm thinking. You know the pressure that I'm facing. After that, let's talk. Are you sure you still want to ask me those questions? Or you can find
True. No,
something out for yourself?
100% right. Yeah.
That's good.
No,
Walk in the shoes.
Serious. I'm perfectly serious. If I'm working 6 days a week, 20 hours a day, and people are trying to tell me like, we need to have better communication. I need to know what's going on and things like that. Hey, follow me for a day. Let's rotate. So Timothy can follow me for Monday, Jeremy can follow me on Tuesday, Mavis can follow me on Wednesday, and then the week after, why don't you guys tell me?
That's good.
Okay, yeah. but that's just a food for thought. That's just a food for
That's
thought.
a great way.
Like, we need to be a bit more understanding to everyone around us. We are all vulnerable.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on this is, look, if you are employed right now, truthfully, be thankful, because
of course,
unemployment rates are at historical levels now, right? So if you're an employee and you're really making a fuss about something that does not need to be made a fuss about, you don't deserve to be there. I'm sorry. No, dead ass serious. There's a lot of people who would love to take your position and be thankful to have a job. You know what I mean? That's the reality. There's so many people unemployed right now who would love to be working, who are sitting at home not knowing what to do. Unemployment is not cutting it for them, especially with the 600 running it, right? It's not cutting it for them. So for them, right, be gracious and say, okay, thankfully I have a job. And I think that's a big problem that you're finding. A lot of people don't have that gratitude that we talked about. They don't. And, you know, you should, because that's the end of the day, you know, a paycheck is a paycheck. And for any solopreneur, entrepreneur, a paycheck is not guaranteed. So that's the thing that you got to keep in mind as an employee. You should be thankful for a paycheck, because it is not a guarantee for an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
that's really good. Before we end tonight, I want to just for our guests tonight, we want to say thank you to June and Mavis and all the people that hop on our show. And I think we want to end the night. I think June, can you give us some tip, because you do career coaching? What's one thing if someone is out of a job right now? How can they position themselves with the lack of jobs out there? So in this
good question.
That's a great question. I wouldn't rely on applications. The power of networking and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such an underutilized tool by job seekers. You need to start thinking outside of the box and start being proactive and networking through emails, going to workshops like this. Networking would be like, for me, I was attracted to coming here because I actually saw Timothy on one of my posts, because he was DJing on a Friday, right? So like, oh, I need to see what this is all about. But for me, it's like personal branding. Work on your personal branding, networking, ask for help, and you will get through this. If you don't see the opportunity, create the opportunity and start getting mentors from all of these companies that you want to work for. Because everyone right now they know that 44 million people are laid off right now in the US. I think last time I checked. So everyone's willing to help, to give a helping hand. And then also too, lastly, for anyone that's been laid off, I've been laid off. This whole experience has been humbling for me, because me and my husband were okay. We could be okay on one income. We can't go anywhere on vacation, but we can't go anywhere anyways. So for me, if anything has gifted, if COVID gifted me anything, it's the gift of time with my children. It's the gift of time of reflection. So just take this experience as a learning experience and really reflect on what's next for you and what's best for you and your family. And also to take that time to really grieve that layoff, because that's traumatic, especially given the situation that we're in. So I'll also be hosting a free LinkedIn workshop next week if anyone's interested. But yeah, I hope that information helps.
That's awesome.
Great stuff.
And Mavis, what about you? If you were to, for the employers, right, during this pandemic, what are tools out there that they can do a better job at engaging with their employees? What's the tip you can give?
So like Happy Me Career, a good platform with comprehensive engagements, functions where you reward and recognize and gamify the whole thing of employee engagement, as well as you have learning and development and coaching. So we have coaches that's available for all of us, for employees to coach in their well-being. And also it's not a therapy, but just to get them out of what to do next. Just like June was saying, how to think out of the box. But one thing before we close is that I think we can take this time during this pandemic is to really relook at how we want to develop our careers. Because Happy Me Career is going to be actually launched to individuals as an individual network platform soon. So now is the time to take a look at how you want to improve that two-way street of communications. And employers, companies themselves can start right. Nothing is too late. So right now is to look at what kind of culture you want to build forward, how you can build communications to really engage your employee. So at this moment, I think the closing is to really relook, reflect, and what do we want to do. So there are many tools out there actually, in fact. So, but the key thing is engaging the tools. You have to get engaged yourself first.
That's
Right.
good. So before we
stay
end the
tuned.
night, I want to just say, I think 2 takeaways, right? Gratitude and empathy, you know, for both employers and employees. And I appreciate every one of you. And thank you for joining our show. And be sure to be here same time Wednesday or Thursday, your morning, episode 22. Your health matters. So see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Kevin.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
June and
team.
Mavis.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Keep in touch. Bye.
Bye.